Someone that I have been keeping tabs on for quite some time now, who I firmly believe is a detriment to his own reputation and the reputation of others, has been a little-known creator by the name of Peethanonline. What first made me really start paying attention to this person and their catalog of garbage ideas and opinions was the whole SuperMega situation of last year. To give a brief summary of this series of events, it was essentially another allegation case where a former member of SuperMega, a gaming media channel, came out against another member, which led to a cancellation campaign. LexUpDog released a video where she presents grievances she had in regards to the members of the SuperMega channel. While telling her story, she described her experience as traumatizing and smeared members of SuperMega in an extremely exaggerated and distorted display. Out of personal vitriol, not only did she smear SuperMega, but also accused a member, Dawn, of sexual assault. It was clear there was a bias in regards to her overall separation from Dawn and SuperMega, biases that were spread within her personal circle of quote-unquote friends, and by that I mean one particular example in this case, NickIsNotGreen. Nick decided to cover the allegations and biased complaints from LexUpDog and added his own antithetical ideas and opinions. As a result, Nick released a bad faith, personally driven hit piece video called SuperMega is Full of Horrible People. To learn more about this topic, which I'm not going to explain in detail since it's an old drama, please check out these videos here. Nick's coverage of the situation was so deceptive and bad faith that the commentary community and even other figures outside of it questioned the validity of Nick and his commentary. This led Nick's credibility as a commentator himself to outright crumble, as it was clear that he couldn't handle serious issues in a way that did not pander to a specific audience, or wasn't filled to the brim with bias and virtue signaling. Not only was his reputation ruined, but the backlash he received resulted in a heavy hit to his channel. Due to his crumbling presence on YouTube, ultimately he had no choice but to walk back his video and apologize for the situation. Not once, not twice, but more than 4 times now. While Nick received the brunt of the burn for what was the successful false cancellation of SuperMega following the drama, one person in this group of horrible people who came out of this even more terrible, even more annoying, and even more disgusting than before is Peethanonline. So let's start with SuperMega real quick as a point of criticism. This is something that people have brought up time and time again, but to have the gall to make a near 4-hour stream doing nothing but writing the downfall of a channel that was clearly targeted over slanted differences between personalities is something so incredibly petty that it really makes you start to wonder where Ethan's priorities and attentions lie. Instead of handling the situation maturely, Ethan behaves in a way that makes it very clear there's a personal grudge Ethan holds against these people, and it really starts making sense why this would be the case when you start connecting the dots. In my personal opinion and observation, there is probably a very loaded sense of envy and vengeful motive behind this behavior. Not that I know what's going on in Ethan's mind, but this behavior comes off as a really strong, in air quotes, I'm glad my partner's ex's career is getting torn to shreds over a very saturated and bad faith claim that even I don't know the extent of truth of sort of deal. Typically, I don't like to make these conjectures on my channel because there is no way of absolutely knowing, but the way Ethan responded to people after SuperMega's temporary shutdown goes to show that he had a lot of personally driven vitriol that even he couldn't justify at its entirety, because even he couldn't make valid defenses. When he was questioned about LexUpDog and the entirety of the drama, all he did was just have an angry, emotionally fueled meltdown on Twitter where he replied to everyone and anyone on Twitter for the sake of trying to save face. This just made him look worse because instead of trying to justify Lex's behavior with facts and logic, all he did was just make unsubstantiated claims that state SuperMega covered up an essay, or that Lex's claims weren't being believed due to commentary channels miscontextualizing her story. Further onto that, he doesn't even explain how or why this is the case. He just says it with nothing to back up the argument, no additional details on why this or that person was wrong. Keep in mind that Lex's story was filled with holes and a twisted series of events. This was perpetuated by Leighton as well. When Dawn and SuperMega came out with their responses, a lot of the record was corrected, or Lex and Leighton were proven to be outright liars who hid details or said the exact opposite of what happened. Details such as Leighton's allegations that SuperMega was homophobic or that SuperMega drove Lex to homelessness are 2 notable examples of bold lies these people told.
Said they did nothing but helped me, and then gaslit me about it and made me homeless.
Which this again is a lie, and she voluntarily left on her own choice.
We did not throw them out. We did not make them homeless. Here is a text message where they're talking about leaving the office. Y'all have certainly gone above and beyond with your generosity and allowing us to crash for as long as y'all have, and we'd hate to overstay our welcome any further than we already have.
But Ethan doesn't care about the reality of a situation. He just cares about coming out on top of a drama he's emotionally and personally invested in. He cares about his self-image so much that it wouldn't surprise me he behaved the way he did so that he wouldn't seem like a spineless cuck. Which, spoiler, He is. Maybe not the cuck part, but he definitely is a spineless coward. After Nick reluctantly conceded in his overall fight with the commentary community and issued his final apologies, Lex and Ethan respectively were quick to unfriend him and start liking posts that talk negatively about Nick's coverage of the situation and Nick as a person. We can assume that Ethan probably had a part in getting Nick to make that video, and if he did, it just goes to show how cowardly he is for just sweeping Nick under the rug after Nick got torn apart. Something I noticed about Ethan after hours of listening to and watching his brain cell eviscerating content is the fact that in every single one of his videos, he comes across as a very virtuous, caring, compassionate, kind, and intelligent individual. Psych! This dude is as pretentious gets and virtue signals to the highest degree. I didn't even realize you can grift or pretend to care about things as hard as Ethan does.
It's called ideological subversion.
You are doing that right now.
That's why there's a bunch of purple-haired girls roaming the streets chanting, "There is only one solution, Antifada revolution." They do have a really good chance.
God, that was so fucking cringe. What the hell does he mean purple-haired? What? Gay men really are the weakest link. To like immediately turn on purple-haired girls or whatever. Like that's very clearly like vice signaling homophobia in like the fucking I'm gay and homophobic fucking who does that? Dave Rubin. Does anyone know who that is?
This is probably one of the worst things he could have said, knowing the type of person he claimed he used to be. He has no self-reflection and doesn't learn from his actions. I remember in another instance, he literally says he used to bully a gay kid because he was just projecting and secretly gay himself.
I ended up bullying a kid and then we ended up being friends because I think we were both, I think he was gay and I was queer, so.
Oh, you bullied him for being gay when you were gay?
Yeah, you know, kids have kind of a gaydar a little bit. He was either gay or autistic, I don't know.
Not to mention, you're literally just doing the extreme leftist tactic of ostracizing a group for disagreeing with your political ideals. Ethan is a prime example of a leftist friendly firing for wrongthink. The amount of pretentiousness here is extreme, as Ethan calls an openly gay man a homophobe for calling out generic virtue signaling Karens. Post-writing note, from this point forward, let's play a game. Let's count how many times I say insinuate in this video. What Ethan is trying to insinuate by this statement is not even clear either, because he does not know how to formulate his thoughts concisely, but you can still gather what he's implying. Ethan is trying to detract from this man's ideas by using his sexual identity against him, calling him a weak link to being the gay counterpart of an Uncle Tom. Of course, Ethan would never say something like this so brazenly because he'd rather virtue against absolutely opposing ideas instead of friendly firing on people that are supposed to be identity allies. Another part in this video here that really just shows how much of a pretentious virtue signaling wannabe good guy Ethan tries to be is when he misses a blatantly obvious sarcastic joke anyone else could understand.
I'm dying. I think this is killing me.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm a power gay at the Sundance Film Festival, and I'm gonna find some gorgeous Jewish producer to hook me up with a TV show, because I have a genius level IQ.
Guy who believes in IQ because he got really big number on it. I'll believe the fucking racist ass IQ system. It's telling me I'm smart.
To me, and most people watching this, understand this is a joke meant to poke at extremist conspiracy theorists who think they're incredibly intelligent for believing Jewish individuals are secretly in control of elite organizations. It's obvious. In fact, after watching this clip with other people, it was inferred by them that the entire clip Ethan viewed may have very well been a satirization of right-leaning people, the very thing Ethan is against. Of course, this thought doesn't occur to Ethan because he's so brain-rotted by internet lefty virtue that he doesn't even stop to consider this guy is actually on his side. Instead, Ethan decides to make this something entirely about race and knocks the concept of IQ as some esoteric concept made specifically to be racist. You can only gather that by believing a conspiracy yourself about how IQ scores are used to specifically discriminate against marginalized groups. But of course, Ethan would say this as he goes on to call whoever he wants a Zionist and claim right-wingers are warmongering individuals who dream for a military-driven ethno-state. You know, the typical delusional bread-tube rhetoric meant to pin their ideas against opposing ideas for the sake of fear-mongering on behalf of their beliefs.
I'm fabulously funny, and I single-handedly ended global anti-Semitism.
Some of the people chanting Intifada Revolution are Jewish. Marjorie Taylor Greene's a fucking Zionist. You know what I mean? That's whose side you're on. Ask yourself, why do Christian Republicans love Israel so much? Maybe it's because it's like their ideal military state, racially segregated. Right-wingers love that shit.
But that's not the point of this video. The point of that segment right there is just to briefly highlight just how much Ethan insinuates extreme concepts while also pandering to what current day woke Twitter children would typically consume. And I can tell he forces himself to be this way because even a somewhat intelligent person who is somewhat faking their ideologies could come up with better ways of driving home political nonsense without making vague, almost dog whistle-esque statements. Ethan, we know what you're calling out for, and we know the insinuations you're making, or at least I do. It's not slick, and it's not sly. If you genuinely align with the rhetoric you're vaguely spouting, then say it with your chest and don't be a fraud. Otherwise, it's extremely easy to draw the conclusion that you're just a performative grifter. Which makes your credibility seem questionable, not that you had any left. I'm not a political commentator and outright refuse to be one, so let me be very clear. That segment right there was specifically to point out just how vague and pretentious Ethan is with his arguments, if it wasn't clear already, because if you actually take a second to listen to what he says, he's not even making any arguments or concise statements in regards to his beliefs. He's just saying vague statements for viewers to impose what they want to gather out of it, which is successful, as seen by the comments, which means he can be as insincere and as indirect as possible and still gather a bunch of support from his grift. He also does this quite often, even when the topic of the video he's making isn't rooted in politics. Not to mention again, for the millionth time, and sorry for repeating myself, his intense need to be pretentious and act as a holier-than-thou individual. One great example is his infamous modern art video.
I used to hate modern art. I used to think it was too simple, too easy. It's not like the Mona Lisa. That's art. I thought it was less valuable than something more realistic because it didn't take as much skill. I used to think that until I actually went to an art museum and I learned about the stuff I was looking at. I learned the contexts, the purpose, the skill behind making these pieces. And it started to make sense. And since then, I feel like I've only benefited from having more of an open-minded perspective about art.
During the start of this video, he opens up with a pseudo-intellectual conversation about how he used to dislike modern art and then says he learned to appreciate it by understanding things such as the skills and context behind it, but then fails to explain how, why, or what connected in his mind or the philosophy he came to form. Of course, instead of forming up a proper thesis, whether it was taking the time to write one out or sit down and think about it hours in advance before recording this video, he just goes straight to sponsor, only to return with this bullshit.
Of course there's a political component, right? All art is inherently political.
Of course there is a political component. All art is inherently political. Well, that's outright wrong. I don't think fanfictions of Dream SMP or art commissions for oddly rich furries are necessarily political. Terrible example, I know, but I figured the more obscure I make the first example, the more variations of art will come to mind that aren't inherently political. And I guarantee you it would work now that your mind is racing to find more examples internally. And even if you want more practical, formal examples with pedigree, such as Van Gogh's Starry Night, Pablo Picasso's self-portraits, or The Scream by Edward Munch, these were all examples of art that were considered ahead of their time, or leads in modern art that weren't interpreted as political. They were interpreted as reflections of the mental turmoil of someone's psyche. What all of these artists have in common, aside from being ahead of their time, and their art representing modernism in one way or another, is that they all struggled with mental illness respectively. So your statement is inherently wrong. The only reason you would push this argument as an opening is because
art critique is really just opinion, but a lot of people let right-wing propaganda cloud their judgment of modern art, whether they realize it or not. All because it helps them feel better in not wanting to engage with it. In an ideal conservative world, art is interpreted for people through a YouTube video full of lying, misinformation, emotional manipulation, false comparisons, but this happens every day.
And there we have it. In an ideal conservative world, oh my god, so not only do you say that art is up to interpretation and can be interpreted in different ways, but you also go on to say that the way conservatives discuss and interpret it is wrong. Okay, and why is that?
PragerU has made at least a dozen videos fooling your old grandpa about modern art. All of them are completely nonsense and wrong, but why is it then I hear the same boring, shallow, fragile talking points from people who should be way more in touch with culture?
Because they're out of touch with culture per your standards? And again, we're back to insinuations. You're insinuating that because they are conservative and full of right-wing ideologies, the way they interpret modern art is fundamentally incorrect, which is a load of bullshit. And the lack of credibility that this statement has is only reinforced by the fact that you're attempting to compare apples to oranges by forcing Charlie as the topic of discussion into this this video, and you acknowledge that these things aren't comparable, but you do it anyways because you have a grudge against the fact that Charlie somewhat holds the same ideas about modern art that a lot of conservatives have, and now you feel obligated to be this morally superior, coddling, condescending virtuoso because you want to force your personal leftist ideas into it and pander to an audience of people equally as moronic as you.
Listen, yeah, I know his face is in the thumbnail, and yeah, this video is kind of about Charlie. But listen, it's not personal. I'm trying to compare content that realistically should have nothing in common. Fascist propaganda and gamer streamer should not be saying the same things. The difference is PragerU's content is motivated and has an agenda. Charlie is just being a useful idiot for that agenda, with peace and love. I know it's not on purpose. Charlie doesn't watch PragerU for his art analysis content. He probably didn't even get the talking points from them, but they're still saying the same thing. Charlie's just an average guy with an average brain in his head. Florida average, but average. But it's uncanny how similar normal average guy language can be to politically motivated propaganda. Content that we all know is dishonest. Listen, it's nothing personal. It's nothing against Charlie. I've met him before. He's very nice. I just don't know why he's like this.
I don't have to highlight the issue here, but I will anyways. I don't agree with your opinion because it's too similar to those of the people I disagree with. You're a victim to propaganda, so allow me to re-educate you. That's what Ethan is doing here, while attempting to come off as some intellectual, moral superior. If you're so intelligent, have you considered that with or without politics, people can come to the same conclusions naturally without needing political influence at all? Have you considered that art is up to interpretation and doesn't have to have shared ideas between all people? Oh, you have actually. You spent the introduction of this video explaining all of this.
Art critique is really just opinion. The difference is PragerU's content is motivated and has an agenda. Charlie is just being a useful idiot for that agenda, with peace and love. I know it's not on purpose. Charlie doesn't watch PragerU for his art analysis content. He probably didn't even get the talking points from them, but they're still saying the same thing. Charlie's just an average guy with an average brain in his head. Florida average, but average.
Then why do you feel the need to superimpose your beliefs onto his in an attempt to correct his? It's because, again, you're attempting to be a virtue-signaling pretentious moron that forces politics into anything because you think it's the intellectual thing to do. Newsflash, moron, if you're this easy to read and comprehend, you're probably an idiot. This entire video, hell, even the introduction in the video alone just shows how obsessed Ethan is with wrongthink and correcting people on it. Which leads me to my next point. Ethan forces himself in situations and topics like these all the time to paint himself as an intellectually, creatively, and morally superior person. In fact, something that includes everything I just discussed is incredibly present in this smear video. This video is filled with nothing but extremely unnecessary insinuations, implications, and vague political rhetoric for the sake of making a pseudo-empathetic critique against Alex Rosen. And to clarify what I mean by pseudo-empathetic critique, I mean that he's sort of signaling that he feels bad for the pedophiles. Anyways, the introduction is fair play in this video. He genuinely makes some good points in regards to one of the very first viral moments of Alex Rosen where he completely fumbled his sting on EDP. I'll give credit where credit is due, which is immediately detracted right after the fact as he goes on a tangent insinuating that Alex Rosen himself is a predator. He does this by taking clips out of context, making the implication that Alex Rosen is a PDF. You know what? A Peethan file, without ever having the balls to outright say it. Also, Ethan, once again, can literally not go more than a few minutes, 5 minutes to be fair, without making it a political issue and inserting his virtue signaling.
Yeah, he's openly admitted before that he just uses actual minors as bait. Doesn't really make sense to me. I thought you're supposed to be protecting the children, not sacrificing them. And again, remember, this is all for nothing. This is also they just get content out of actual pedophiles. So of course, because the predator hunter anti-pedophile dog whistles are extremely right-wing in nature, he was also on Tim Pool's show, where I think a pedophile hunter should be.
I just decided to go throw up a fake profile of a 15-year-old boy and just see what happens.
This guy keeps getting interviewed, even though he's directly put minors in harm's way before, on purpose. He was recently interviewed by Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire. Michael Knowles is like a D-tier Daily Wire guy, so I never really talk about him. He's really stupid. He's like the Waluigi to Ben Shapiro's Mario.
So because the anti-pedophile dog whistles are right-wing in nature. Ethan, honestly, how the fuck do you come to this conclusion? You can't even provide an explanation why this is the case. If you're making claims like these, at least have the capacity to elaborate on them and make the idea whole instead of dog whistling yourself and banking on Twitter leftists to fill in the blank for you. Instead, you just go on to once again make insinuations and talk mess about Tim Pool and other individuals you disagree with. Have some integrity. Really, you have the audacity to call this guy stupid, but can't even hold real talking points or arguments yourself. it's impossible to take you seriously.
On the scale of these guys don't consider anything in the metaphysical realm to these are interdimensional demons worshiping Satan, where do your marks fall?
You see why I can't fucking take Michael Knowles seriously. Immediately, he's like, where do you think on the scale of like interdimensional demons do you think these random Facebook pedophiles you're catching in your fucking rural Texas town? Do you think that could be alien demons?
Ethan, you seriously need to have some self-reflection and awareness because you literally do the exact same thing. In fact, you do it worse. Once again, you just insinuate and imply things. You never explain where you get any of your conclusions from or why they make sense. At this point, who are you to say anything about anyone or their style of conversing?
This guy is a high school graduate with a YouTube channel.
Do you ever go to the movies or something? Do you ever have a day off?
Well, I don't take off days. I'll love to work. So luckily, I think catching predators is the funnest thing somebody can do. So it really works out well for me.
So, he's so brain broken. He doesn't take off days. He just sits inside on the internet, probably scrolling Twitter all day long, talking to fucking pedophiles on Facebook, pretending to be a minor every day. Unwell. He said it's the funnest thing I can think of.
Something that really ticked me off when watching this video is how Ethan has the audacity to insult Alex Rosen for sitting inside all day catching predators, and then insults his intelligence. Ethan, again, self-reflection. You make zero intelligent statements. Your reaction and dissection of this is piss poor. You sit inside and smoke weed all day, pandering to an audience that will rip you apart the moment Lex comes out against you. You literally provide absolutely nothing but false and negative interpretations of people that are at least doing something to protect a few communities. You sit on Twitter every day, you sit on YouTube every day, and pretend to be an intelligent, virtuous individual. You are significantly worse.
Dude, he watches so much fucking like propaganda and like interrogation on YouTube where he's trying to establish rapport with this old man in his recliner.
At least try to be nuanced, Ethan. What Alex Rosen is doing is not only a tactic that is proven to be functional to get people to admit their wrongdoings, but there are several psychological studies that support the idea that behavioral affirmation and things such as confirmation bias lead people to say things out of pure comfort.
Does he think this is an interrogation?
Well, yes, he literally wants him to admit his actions.
She kept taking me first.
I do think that because this guy keeps repetitively engaging these people, clearly, you can't arrest him for that. Because he wasn't talking to a little girl. He was talking to a guy pretending to be a little girl. It's not illegal, unfortunately.
It's not illegal, unfortunately. Yes, it is. You could have figured this out by doing one Google search. Texas Penal Code states that someone can be charged for talking to a person that presents themselves to be younger than 17. That could be literally anyone, including Alex Rosen. And to be clear, he is from Texas. This is also the case if the solicitor believes a decoy is in fact a minor, which is why a confession is incredibly important. It's illegal in most states, especially if intent is proven, usually from a request to meet in person as well.
We were posing as a fake pedophile online, and he either messaged me or my
posing as a fake pedophile online. Of course, I downloaded it just as a fake. I downloaded it so no one else can have it.
This part right here really grinded my gears. You do realize people can just say anything on the internet, right? You can't possibly be ignorant to this. It's disgusting that you're implying that Alex is a Peethan himself or that he's in possession of CSAM. People are edgy and say things that are deceptive all the time, whether it's a joke or to be annoying edgelords. You do the same thing, especially when it comes to how you handle the SuperMega situation. As a matter of fact, this entire video is filled with Ethan just making claims such as this. Literally every other minute, he's implying that Alex Rosen is a Peethan.
You can't make these kinds of jokes and look like this. He doesn't want to be a cop anymore. He's having way too much fun, pretending to be a little boy all day. It's important to remember that he literally said that he only started using Grindr because he had pictures of his little brother that he posted on there. Come on my show. Wow, you posted child porn of your brother?
have a 9-year-old daughter.
And be a pedophile too, because you look like a pedophile. And be a pedophile too, because you look like a pedophile.
I guess I'm just trying to...
Dude, these guys never talk about fucking anything.
These guys don't ever talk about fucking anything. You don't either.
Michael Knowles is a fucking idiot.
And you are too. Last thing, since I'm dragging this on, Ethan, as I said, is an individual so full with envy in his heart, he's so delusional and needs to feel superior to others so desperately that he just has to deprecate anything and everything through virtue signaling and moral superiority. He does just that by the end of this video, calling Alex Rosen's arrests, convictions, and stings useless because he's accomplishing nothing.
At this point, we have an arrest in 44 different states.
An arrest in 44 different states. So one per state out of 600 stings?
Convictions in 30.
But that's a really nice way to not say how many.
So how many stings have you done?
Oh my gosh. I think close to 600 over the years.
God damn, dude, he basically does nothing. He's lucked out every time he's really caught someone and actually gotten them convicted. Such a grifter.
Alex Rosen has gotten a few successful arrests and investigations towards some very dangerous people. He's gotten a few people jailed and sentenced. He's made other people aware of some very disgusting individuals. Clout chasing or not, that is very valuable to our society. It helps communities where one Peethan file can destroy the innocence of potentially dozens or hundreds of children. Yet Ethan has the audacity to say that Alex Rosen does nothing. Ethan, you do nothing. You make garbage videos with literally no substance. You smoke weed all day like an addict. You can't put down the pen for 1 second and make bad faith takes about everyone and anyone. You accomplish literally nothing.
Such a grifter.
Such a grifter. Ethan, you're literally the worst grifter I've seen, right behind Sneeko or Hassan. Actually, at least Hassan donates to charities and the causes he believes in. I think all your money is wasted in recreational drugs, toys, and maid dresses. After Ethan made this quote-unquote hit piece against Alex, he took to Twitter where he was rightfully called out and had a heated argument with Alex Rosen himself where he doubles down on his takes and gets absolutely Twitter rolled. Twitter does what it does best, and Ethan got flamed, and long story short, Ethan made these pathetic self-victimizing tweets. Really cute to keep making videos harassing a victim of multiple CSA for calling out the unethical and suspicious practices of a YouTuber wannabe cop. Seriously, fuck all of you. You're defending an actual predator, but you don't care because you want the content. You're sick. Well, Ethan, you probably shouldn't be calling another person a predator without evidence or substantial proof. If I saw some overpaid hog YouTuber sitting for tea with a man that groomed and assaulted me, I'd be sick to my stomach. Fuck you all for inserting yourself into something you don't understand. Well, have you considered the fact that maybe a victim would be potentially happy that the person who is grooming them is actually getting sent to fucking prison or called out on their disgusting behavior? Maybe you're the one who doesn't understand. I don't give a shit about your NPC talking points. You don't know what this kind of trauma is like, and you don't give a shit about children or victims. I'm humiliated I have to even talk about this, but getting called a pedophile for months on end has been crippling on my mental health. Fuck you all. I hope you get exactly what you deserve. Ethan, you can't make these tweets calling someone a predator outright and then expect to not get the same shit served right back to you. Not to mention, you made an entire video where you called and insinuated that he was a predator for like 20 minutes. You reap what you sow, and it looks like you can't handle what you rightfully have to reap. You started this, and now you want people to empathize with you? As a matter of fact, your credibility is so negative that who's to say you're not making the rest of this up for pity? Have a backbone, dude. Grow up, own up to your horrible behavior. Ethan is someone who is genuinely an unreliable person on this platform. Throughout the course of this video, I made it a priority to highlight just how disingenuous and hollow he is as a creator. He never makes arguments or strong talking points. He lies about people and insinuates the worst on their character. He never truly knows what he's talking about. He just makes vague implications and hopes that his audience assumes whatever point he's attempting to make. He constantly virtue signals and attempts to be better than everyone else despite being a talentless loser with no skills. And on top of that, he's an insufferable weed addict who inserts politics into everything for the sake of leftist key-jingling pandering. Literally every video, he has to insert leftism or how the right wing is bad in the first 2 to 5 minutes without fail. I have no sympathy for him, and I can't respect his craft. Ethan, you hide behind a shield of insinuation. You don't have the bravado or spine to actually speak what's on your mind unless it's through a digital text-based platform, because there's no way in hell you confront anyone with more than half a brain on call or through indirect videos. There's no way you'd even say what you intend to say 100% through because you're too afraid to get called out on your word. You make terrible content that is carried by a leftist audience that can't see through your facade. You're a miserable individual who absolutely needs to be better than everyone around him, or else he starts becoming an agitated mess. Respectfully, disrespectfully actually, clean your act up, apologize to your friend, to the people you unfairly slandered, and focus on making projects that are actually interesting. That's all I got. Take care.